So the other day someone in my Discord, link in the description, posted a rather interesting link that after I clicked on it, I just knew I couldn't help make an entire video on. See, the link was to a Reddit thread created by the user named ActualArno, and the entire thread was just a ton of information about the current state of Duel Links, its growth and revenue. And I'm going to use all this data he provided today to answer the age-old question, is Duel Links dying? As let's be honest here, this game is like 5 years old now, and even I'm surprised it's still going. Now before we get into the data, there are a few important things to go over first. Firstly, I'll leave a link to the original thread at the top of the description, as there is a ton of info on there that I won't be showcasing in this video at all. So I highly recommend giving it a read when you have the time, as the original post is a lot of work and it was really well made, so please go do take a look at it. Secondly, the data provided will be all in US dollars and will not include the Chinese release of the game, as that version of the game is just completely separate from the global version. Thirdly, neither the original poster or I are employees of Konami, nor are we data analysts, so all the information Arno gathered was done through the app App Annie. So a lot of the stuff in this video is hypothetical and could be wrong, since it only comes from the info shared via that app and not necessarily the full picture. And last but not least, before we get into the data, this YouTube channel is currently extremely close to 40k subscribers, so if you do enjoy this kind of content and want to see more stuff from me, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below so you can see whenever I post. It's literally free and you can unsub at any time. Alright, so first of all, here is some general data for revenue and downloads of the game to give us a general idea of how the game is doing. So this data was gathered between December 2020 to March 2021. So during this time period, the game received 1,830,000 downloads across Android and iOS, which is a fuck ton. The game generated over $30 million. Yes, that's right. To put that in a bit of perspective, in about a third of a year, this game generated enough income to purchase 4.3 million Blue Eye structure decks. And interestingly enough, that was mostly from the smaller Apple player base. As for active users, which is the average amount of people who log in at least once per day, this game had about 1.6 million users, with only about 250k of those being iOS. So what does this data mean? Well, to put it simply, Duel Links is doing fantastic. According to OP, the downloads are down compared to the previous year, which isn't unusual for a game entering its 5th year, but most importantly, the game is currently generating more money than ever before, whilst having its largest player base ever. Also according to OP, and I find this incredible, Duel Links by a long shot is the best performing card game on mobile devices, far outclassing Legends of Runeterra, Hearthstone and Gwent. Obviously we are strictly talking only mobile, so I don't think this includes the massive player base Hearthstone and Runeterra have on PC, but that's still pretty insane. Alright, let's dive a little deeper. Here are the average daily downloads and revenues over the past year. The average daily download is about 24.8 thousand people globally, and as for the daily revenue, it's a bit over 300,000. But there's a very important thing to note here. Although almost 25k people installed Duel Links, only 12% of people who install Duel Links on Android devices will ever open it, and only about 5% on iOS. This means there are only about 2,350 new players on Android every day, and only around 260 on iOS, which is clearly not that impressive. With this info in mind, we can conclude that Duel Links, although performing really well, is most definitely relying more on its already steady player base than the new fresh players to generate the 300,000 it receives in revenue daily. So how much money does the average Duel Links player spend on Duel Links? Let's take a look at the average money spent by people who install Duel Links per platform per country. Now these numbers at first glance might seem kinda small, but for reference, according to OP in this industry, an average of $1 is generally considered breaking even, and $2 is fantastic. So for this game to have an average RPT globally of over double that, sitting at $5 is insane, at least for Android. OP didn't specify what an average RPD for iOS is, but it did mention that the average RPD worldwide for Duel Links, specifically in Japan and America in this case, is absurdly high. This means that Duel Links isn't just breaking even. It's literally a gold mine for Konami, with a pretty insane conversion rate of non-paying players to paying players. So in conclusion, what do we get from all this data? Well, first of all, Duel Links is very, very, very far from death. It isn't exactly generating massive amounts of new players anymore after being around for 5+ years, but it's still growing, and the amount of players it does have daily is still peaking at its highest player base ever. On top of that, the game itself is outperforming any other mobile card game on the market, and is generating an absurd amount of revenue for Konami, meaning this game isn't likely to get dropped and will be receiving new content and support for quite a while yet. And the final thing I'll finish the video on is the conclusion that the original OP wrote himself, that kind of explains why Duel Links generally caters to its paying player base rather than the free-to-play audience, as I found it quite interesting and wanted to share it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Free-to-play players literally do not matter. Konami's bringing in enough new players and manages to maintain them for long enough to convert them, and the average player spends enough on the game to keep it afloat for years. All free-to-play players could quit the game in a flash and Duel Links wouldn't suffer much from it. After all, even if free-to-play players represent the majority of the current user base, there are more than enough paying players, even budget ones, to make sure PvP queue times don't go up more than a second or two. Which brings me to my next point. Konami knows how to make us spit the grain. I've spent money on this game and I'm sure I'm far from the only one. Duel Links has many ways to convert players, whether through exclusive sales or content locked behind a paywall, namely EX Structure Decks. The purpose of free gem rewards isn't to keep free-to-play players happy, and it never was. The purpose of free gems is to get players purchasing packs until they no longer have gems and feel enticed to spend money to keep purchasing said packs. This being said, there's nothing wrong with being a free-to-play player. Nobody can blame you for not spending money on a mobile gacha game, and you don't have to justify yourself for your choice to be a free-to-play player. However, you also have to understand, as explained before, you do not matter to Konami's eyes. You shouldn't expect the game to cater to your needs, and the reason I care about making this point so much is because there are very entitled attitudes coming from free-to-play players around here, and some weird hate towards spending players of any kind. There's nothing wrong with spending money on Duel Links either. However, if you do, keep in mind that Konami wants you to spend more money than you have yet. So to avoid putting yourself in financial strain, make sure to define a reasonable weekly, monthly budget for Duel Links and force yourself to stick to it. There are many stories of people spending way more money than they can afford to in a gacha game, and Konami won't ever feel any guilt over the money they've gotten from you. Please keep that in mind if you do choose to spend money in Duel Links, or in any free-to-play game for that matter.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.